everyone, welcome back to Kingdom College. It's Celine and we'll be going through Power Reading Test 50 today. So some key points for this test before we begin. So I'd like us to understand the purpose and indirect message of text. So I want us to know why the composer has written the text and perhaps if there are any messages or any hidden purposes that we need to seek out ourselves and comprehend, because sometimes the author doesn't want to tell us directly. And secondly, I'd like us to follow the structure of text types to help answer questions. So this is most applicable for closed passages. So for example, if we have a narrative, then we need to follow the orientation, complication, and resolution/conclusion structure, right? So that's just some ideas I'd like us to remember before we begin this test. So for our first text, we have Mulga Bill's Bicycle by A.A. Banjo Patterson. So this is the text. Please read this in your own time. We mainly have a character that's very good at riding, and they're actually just wanting to go home. So once again, please come back to this video when you guys are finished reading. So question 1 asks us to directly engage with the text. So it reads, "Excuse me, can you ride?" Mulga Bill's response to this question is what? So on the board, I have the response of Mulga Bill to this question. So this question is a little bit, it is like a joke, but it's a little offensive. And you can see that Mulga Bill takes a little bit of offense here when he says, "See here, young man." And then he starts bragging about how good he is in terms of riding, right? He says, "There's no one that can ride like me." So there's a bit of annoyance, but at the same time, if you think about his position, you can think that, well, you've worked so hard or you've practiced so hard to ride, and then everyone just makes fun of you. So this anger is kind of justified. For that reason, option C, indignant, would be the best option. Indignant means that you are angry or upset at a situation, but you feel that way because the situation has been unjust towards you. So it just hasn't been fair, and therefore your feelings are actually justified. So for question 1, the answer would be C. Question 2 asks us to directly engage with the text again. So although I'm not the one to talk, I hate a man that blows. This comment is what? So I want to focus on the first phrase. So although I'm not the one to talk, this means that the person is admitting that they are not the best person to critique, right? So perhaps their judgment is flawed and they admit that, right? Later on, they say, "I hate a man that blows." So that means that they feel as if they're probably not the best person to be judging, perhaps because they also blow, right? Like the phrase later on, the second phrase. That means that this sentence is hypocritical because they're saying that they shouldn't be speaking because they also do this action. So that within itself is hypocritical. So the answer for question 2 would be C. Question 3 asks us, in the third stanza, we learn that Mulga Bill's intended destination is what? So in the third stanza, I put up the first 2 lines up on the board. It says, "'Twas Mulga Bill from Eagle Hawk that sought his own abode." So own abode means his own house, his own home, right? So that best aligns with A. The rest of the stanza then starts describing the area. So it tells us where it is, what it looks like, or what the surroundings look like. So home really fits for question 3. For our second text, we have a text by a reviewer. So it's titled "The Age Newspaper, Australia" by Jim Shembry. So they basically start talking about the stereotypes of Australia and what that says about our national identity and basically how they don't like it. So please read this extract by yourself and then come back to this video. So for the first question we have, so question 4, according to genre, this film could be best described as what? In this case, it would be best described as a drama. So for our second text, we have The Age Newspaper Australia by Jim Shembri. And Shembri basically reviews a film, and it's titled Australia. And they don't like it mainly because of the stereotypes and also the fact that it's very cliche. So please read this extract in your own time, then come back to this video when you finish reading. So for question 4, according to genre, this film could best be described as what? So this film fits very well with its cliches. It is incredibly dramatized. It's very extra, right? The stereotypes and the action in itself. The answer in this case would be B, drama, because the film is very cliche. It's very, I would say, like extra. So it's not something that's like adventurous or like realistic, or at least it's not funny to the reviewer because they think that these stereotypes are actually really offensive. And there's also no mention of science fiction. For question 5, it asks us the second paragraph of this review refers to a few what? So if we take a look at the extract, it says like the horses, the cattle, the dust, the rugged Aussie loner, the Aborigine standing on one leg in a loincloth, the beer, the ruse. About the only thing missing is a bloke named Bruce. So this is a very general idea of what Australia is. It's also not necessarily true. These are general ideas that have been stereotyped about Australia. There are stereotypes of Australia. So C would be best in this occasion because it has a general idea of Australian culture, but it's a little offensive when you really think about it. Next, for the final text, we have a closed passage. This is more like a narrating style text. So please read it carefully. Think about what sentence you'd put in terms of the events, and come back to this video once you've finished. Here are the options, as in the sentences that you'll be putting in for your questions. So question 6 is located in the first paragraph. This is the introduction or the orientation of the story. So we don't want anything incredibly complex. So if we take a look at the extract, it reads, Simon felt the temperature dropping on the summit. Then the missing sentence, Simon knew that they did not have any more time. So here we're already being put in a situation where the characters are under stress. They seem to be climbing a mountain, right? So like a summit. So we want a sentence that reflects the environment, but maybe even perhaps the panic and the danger that they're in. So for example, if we take a look at sentence A, it was a tough climb and Breckner was tailing from behind. This is a bit of a weird, sorry, there's a typo there, it should be falling from behind. This is a bit of a weird sentence because we're talking about Simon and now we're talking about Breckner. And then the following sentence talks about Simon. So the constant flicking back and forth of characters isn't ideal, so this isn't a good sentence. B would be a good sentence because it tells us about the environment. For the first time, the sun disappeared completely, plunging them into a dusky gloom. So here, sentence B, an option B, would be fitting for question 6. The other options like C, it was most vulnerable, they would be on the descent. They already use the pronouns of they, but the thing is we don't know who they is. We don't know who they are. We just know Simon. And F wouldn't be good because they are not going down from the summit at the moment. At least it's not clear enough anyway. For question 7, I'd like us to use a little bit of our own logic and reasoning. So let's read the first sentence together, which is, they shortened the safety lines to 20 feet. And then the following one, Gilbert was the lead and they put Breckner between him and Simon. Then we have the missing question 7. Happy birthday, Breckner. Simon said as they pulled on their oxygen masks again and stopped speaking. So here they're just about to descend, and it seems as if Breckner seems to be protected, which is why Simon says like happy birthday, right? So we want a sentence that maybe comments on the fact that Breckner is safe or perhaps on what they're doing. The only sentence that does talk about that would be sentence D. Between them, he reasoned, they would be able to hold him if he slipped. So they're thinking about how they would protect Breckner. So option C with sentence D would be a great option for question 7. So question 8 is the first sentence of the following paragraph. But for this question, I'd actually like us to look at the last sentence of the previous paragraph. So it says, he was thinking too much about Breckner. So Simon was really concerned about Breckner's safety. Then we have a new paragraph and the missing sentence. Climbers killed climbers. He knew it was the thin air, the tiredness, the cold that were doing it to him. Here it sounds as if there's a lot of responsibility that weighs on Simon for Breckner's safety. So we want a sentence that maybe talks about the danger of the situation, maybe Simon's concern for Breckner, or maybe the pressure that that Simon feels, and maybe even Simon's concern for his own safety, considering the danger of the situation. The only sentence that really does reflect all of those overwhelming emotions would be sentence F. He was too anxious, too eager to get down. So it communicates the worry that Simon has, it communicates the fear, the fact that he was too worried to get down or to descend shows that he's hesitant because he's scared that he's going to endanger his peers. So Breckner, for example. So option D with sentence F would be a great answer for question 8. In question 9, we're following the events of the group descending, right? So question 9 is a little bit in the early parts of a new paragraph. So let's look at the sentence before and after. The wind picked up to a steady 15 knots and walls of a cloud began blowing over the mountain. Then we have the missing sentence. The cloud in front of Simon's face was wispy and glutinous. Here I find it interesting that we're talking about the wind and the clouds, and it's a very continuous image of the fact that the area is just really cloudy, right? Because we want to continue that idea, we want a sentence that flows with that. So we want a sentence that talks about the clouds or the wind. And the only sentence that does talk about that would be sentence E. So sentence E that says the air filled with curtains of grey fog. So option D, sentence E would be good to put in for question 9 since it continues the idea of the wind, the clouds, through the idea of fog and air, which are, all forms of gas that they're talking about. So question 10 is in the last paragraph as well, but it's closer to the very end of the entire story. So we want a sentence that almost ends the story or summarizes it, or some stories like to end a bit on a cliffhanger. So let's take a look at the text itself. So that Simon knew that they would need about an hour to traverse this top bridge, which angled to the south. Then we have our missing sentence. He imagined the three of them in his mind as bobbing specks like currents in swirling in milk, sorry. So in this case, we have a shift of Simon's thoughts. So he shifts from the danger of the situation to his worry for his peers. He does still talk about the danger of the situation, but there's just a little bit of a change in focus, I would say. So we want a sentence that perhaps introduces his worry for his peers, and sentence A doesn't really talk about that because it's only talking about one peer, which is Breckner. Sentence C, however, is a good option because it tells us that it was most vulnerable, they would be on the on the descent. So they is a collective group. It's a good pronoun. So C would be a great sentence to express the worry that Simon has for the entire group. So the answer for question 10 would be B with sentence C. So that's it for this test. I hope you guys have a better understanding of purpose, indirect messages, and how structures shape the fluency and the order of sentences. Please use these skills in your practice tests and also just well, in school or in life in general. I'll see you guys next week, but till then, please take care. Bye.